Hey guys, Magic here, and if you're like me, you're still trying to find a deck to play that can actually win, or is just fun, or at the very least won't go like 0-4, 0-5. And it seems like people running, Scarab God decks, Energy decks, and certain other ones just cannot be beaten, so it's almost like you have to just build around them, but that might not be everybody's local meta. And I always think local meta is a little generous, because meta is like, it implies a large number. I think a better way to phrase it would be, what can you build that beats the other 7 people at your LGS? So instead of me just throwing decks up there, and if you see something you like, you're like, cool, I'll build that. That looks fun. Which, by the way, is not net decking. Net decking is copying the top tournament results. That is the only definition. Just finding a deck you like that somebody else built and then playing with it, that is not net decking. That's just you not wanting to build a deck or not having an idea or being lazy or whatever. Well, instead of that, I thought, why don't I just go through the main mechanics? Because people don't even know, like, what should I start looking at? What should I even consider? Because some of these, you get done with the deck and you're like, well, this sucks. Like, oh, this isn't going to beat anything. I mean, I went with 100%, we'll say vehicles. That'll be a wonderful example. I built an all vehicles deck because I thought, oh, let's try that. And it got absolutely destroyed because of what else is in standard right now, and it's a bad matchup. Maybe it even is a very, very good deck. It's just a bad matchup. And unfortunately, that would describe Trampoline right now. I played it, and I just had bad matchup after bad matchup after bad matchup. And the couple people that were, like, at least a moderately good matchup, I destroyed them. But yeah, hexproof creatures, counterspell heavy, and people running with no creatures, yeah, Trampoline ain't gonna beat that. So let's start with the Kaladesh block. Kaladesh itself had, of course, energy, it had vehicles, and it had Fabricate, actually. And then if you look at Aether Revolt, it had Improvise and Revolt. So as a whole, what do I think of the block? I think it's the most powerful block in Standard right now, almost specifically just because of Aether Revolt. I mean, Kaladesh was just kind of good, it was moderately good. But Aether Revolt, they cranked the power up to 99, and it's kind of affecting the meta a little bit. It's kind of affecting their sales a little bit too, if I want to speak in terms of what Wizards actually cares about. But that's just last video. So, energy. Duh, it does everything. You could play probably 5-color energy and get away with it. It does everything. It has removal based on energy. You got hexproof based on energy, saving, ambush, boost. I mean, flying, token creation. Energy does everything, and there's way too many ways to generate energy. So you could pick one of the absolute top decks right now, also known as net decking, and play that, and of course you're going to win the majority of your games because energy is virtually unstoppable. But if you don't want to be a dick, you could play, some other energy, just some more subtle thing, or like a monocolor, There's other energy out there, and nobody's playing Solemnity, so, is it a good match against just about anything? Yeah, if you built a moderately good deck, it has a chance against just about everything. So I wouldn't discount energy, but would I do like 1/3 energy and 2/3 something else? Probably not. It's kind of like an all-in kind of thing. I mean, you could maybe get it to work. Like, I've seen people just do like, oh, it generates energy when it swings, and then you can spend it on this, and that's the only energy in their whole deck, and that certainly works. Plus, if you do like 2 or 3 energy cards, you could probably get Aether Hub working pretty darn well, and that is a really good card. So energy, I mean, I'd easily give it like an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 for competitiveness and ease of building and the card support being there, and just all around 8 or 9 out of 10 easy. We'll just say 8.5. Now keep in mind, I am giving one of these a 9, so don't just go build energy immediately. Plus, at this point, I mean, give your LGS a break. They're probably sold completely out of just specifically Pokemon Electric Energy cards. You guys ruined it for everybody. You have officially killed the Pokemon Electric decks because there's no more energy. You bought them all. They're extinct. So vehicles, those are crap. To stop dinosaurs, stop pirates, stop vampires, stop merfolk, stop anything that's competitive right now. It's all tribals. Basically, people are running board wipes or just point removal, or they're, mixing or flip-flopping in the sideboard. I can't see anybody not running like 8 creature removal cards total or more in basically any deck that exists. I mean, maybe not Red Rush, but that's just because they try to win in other ways. So if they could remove your crew from play, they've effectively removed your vehicle from play, and you get what I called a parking lot, or the impound lot. It depends, because it's just a bunch of vehicles sitting there doing nothing. I mean, they're trapped. They can't do anything. They're just sitting there. So yeah, too big of a weakness. That always was the problem with vehicles. It's not fast. It's not good. I mean, there's some killer vehicles out there right now, but it's too much of a glaring weakness. Well, and plus you still got like Celestial Flare clones where they could just nuke anything, and there's pretty cheap artifact removal too. Not many people are playing it, but there's vehicles has nothing going for it. Now Fabricate, I mean, oh, you either choose to make the creature bigger, so it's dropping counters onto creatures, which is not a unique mechanic, or creating tokens, which is not a unique mechanic. So Fabricate kind of goes with the other thing, which is improvise, because you're bringing out servos, and really the only terribly logical reason to do that is if your opponent's running point removal and you want more than one target, or if you want improvise, because now you've basically got little robot lands. The problem is, exactly what I said before, board wipes and creature removal are the bread and butter right now in Standard, so Improvise relies on your board state having a bunch of stuff on it, and keep in mind, there's some serious artifact removal in mass. I mean, there's only 2 of them, 3 if you count Release the Gremlins, but they are devastating. It's that Force Out or Force Away or whatever, that little cheapy, red X spell. And then, what's the other one? Consulate Crackdown. That one's a little expensive and not many people play it, but it would just like end the game. So if it's in their sideboard, you'd be in trouble. So yeah, relying on stuff to stay on the field right now, probably not a good idea. Well, stuff, I mean specifically creatures. Even to this day, with Revel and Riches and Mechanized Production still actually being a deck, yes, multiple people built it in my area, people still are not running enchantment removal. So Improvise is big, powerful spells and mana ramp, but the best thing I can say about Improvise is play treasures instead, they're better. I mean, it's really that simple. It's less narrow, you can cast anything, it's better, more reliable ramp, it just is better. Now the last one is Revolt, and this one's interesting because we no longer have Scions, and there's a couple creatures and spells and enchantments, that kind of stuff, that say sacrifice, 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 where you can do it repeatedly, so you could, do it at will. There's some deserts that blow themselves up and do something. You still got your Evolving Wilds, that's cool. So yeah, you could probably make Revolt go off reliably, and there are some crazy Revolt spells. I mean, Aid from the Cowl is one of the best spells in Standard right now. Nobody's playing it, that's weird. Call for Unity, also one of the absolute best, most powerful cards in Standard right now, and nobody's playing it. Fatal Push, okay, but then you got your Green Wheel Liberator and your Narnum Renegade, just absolutely excellent cards. Solemn Recruit, she's crazy. She's basically Fabled Hero. So there's some good stuff. It is exclusively white, green, and black, but those are some powerful colors right now. Now, it just so happens that a lot of the best, most commonly played treasure generators are actually black as well. So if you did Black Revolt, you could probably get somewhere. It's just, grand total, there are only 20-something cards. Or no, it's actually 17 cards that run Revolt. So split it by 3 colors and it's a little bit narrow, and Revolt is kind of one of those all-in things where you really do have to make sure that your deck can consistently do it, especially with the recurring triggers. Now the one and done, drop it into the field, single check cards, they aren't even that powerful, but then okay, you wouldn't need to make sure everything in your deck is removable at will. But the cool thing is, if your opponent starts destroying your stuff, Revolt. There you go. You don't even need to be in control. But the problem with that is you kind of do want to control when a permanent leaves the battlefield, because if you need Revolt to go off, you do not want to miss that trigger. So I don't know. It feels pretty good because it does kind of play around control. So yeah, I'd maybe give it a 6 out of 10 as far as, competitiveness and ease of use in the meta. So that's it for that block. Let's move on to Space Egypt. Now get this. If you were to count every mechanic and everything, you basically have got cartouches, if you want to be really generous, curses, which is auras that go on the player, brick counters, which, okay, whatever, -1/-1 counters, split cards with aftermath, so glorified flashback, cycling, embalm, exert, and then if you could move on to Hour of Devastation as well, you've got, a lot of repeats, and then eternalize, which is honestly a repeat. And actually, come to think of it, that's it. So Hour of Devastation actually didn't really add anything. I mean, if you consider eternalize to be embalm, oh, they added Afflict. Other than that, they just added more support for what was already there. They got curses, they got bricks, they got -1/-1s, they've got the split cards with aftermath, and they've got exert, and they've got cycling. So all of those, you got to think, boy, they just plain added support for it. Now the card base is very playable. So do all of them look good? With exert, I'm gonna say no, because when you're versing other people's large lines of synergistic boosted tribals, the last thing you want to do is keep your creatures tapped for an extra turn, And a lot of combat tricks are out right now, and a lot of people are playing them. So if they wanted to, remove your creature from combat, or, force you to sacrifice it, or, some kind of Celestial Flare clone or something, they're going to do it when you exert it, so it leaves you kind of wide open, and Always Watching is gone, and that was like the only reason to play Exert. So Exert, I'd maybe give it like a 2 or 3 out of 10. It's just not good. If you were to throw in just like Glorybringer, or not Glorybringer, well, sure, Glorybringer, why not? But I was thinking that other one with, I think, Glory in it, the 3/1 that turns into a 4/4 lifelinker, can't remember the name of it. I think it's like Glory Bound something, whatever. Like, okay, throw him in your deck and you gain 4, and then maybe they won't hit you for 4. Like, I could see that. But an entire Exert deck, I mean, all you got left is, untap all your permanents. Untap 2 permanents. Untap Ambush Boost. Ooh. Even Sandstone Bridge is gone. I mean, like, all the good support for Exert being broken is not here. So, and it was barely good enough even with those cards. So yeah, I would not play Exert. Embalm and Eternalize. With the level of creature removal that people are going to be forced to play either shortly or are already playing right now because, tribals, everything's creature, making them kill your creature twice, yeah, I would absolutely play them. They'd almost have to be like a tribal boost, or like already good in the deck, or already flying, or just something else. I wouldn't just throw it in just because it has like Embalm or Eternalize. And plus, keep in mind, Eternalize might be out of the reach of your, mana base. Like, you'll never get to 7, so it basically isn't even written on the card at that point. So do keep that in mind, but I would say overall, I mean, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't, like I said, build a 100%, Embalm and Eternalize, even if it was Zombie Tribal Boost, because then it's just unreliable because that's to get killed in the first place. But, yeah, it's doable, it's playable. Aftermath, I mean, why not? That's I wouldn't even say, I'm going to play an Aftermath deck. It's just play an Aftermath card if you have the mana support for it. And with all the Aether Hubs and Spires and, Treasure, like, you might be able to get that completely off-color second ability to actually work. Well, it's not an ability, but, you might, like, if you're playing Heaven and you want to blow away all your opponent's flyers, you might be able to generate some red just accidentally. Like, would I actually literally put a mountain in the deck? No, but you might be able to, like, accidentally generate red and, take out all of their creatures that are on the ground later if need be. So it's just an option. It's there. Don't forget it's in your graveyard, and some of them are on color with your deck. I mean, there's a white card, first of all. And then some of the white-black, I mean, yeah, people are playing white-black. So, yeah, you get a little bit, extra bonus out of your card, and you never know when it might come up. Because some of the stuff, it's really random. It's just like, like your opponent discards 2. Well, I mean, yeah, if they just drew a bunch of cards, they played Pull from Tomorrow, why not? Hit them for 2. So it just adds that little dynamic, little option. You get more value out of each card. It's good. It's just not that good. So I'd say put it in if you really needed what the top of the card did already. Would I put it in over a different card that was cheaper, more effective, more reliable? No, probably not. It's not that valuable. It's just kind of nice. So -1 counters. Let's talk about that for a second. Holy cow, is that underappreciated. One person was playing a -1 dropper deck, and it was virtually unbeatable. I mean, you'd have to just tiptoe around that deck to try to beat it, because everything it does is just devastating. I mean, the creatures are huge, and then they're making your creatures smaller. It's just horrific to try to play against it. It's so powerful, so good, and the card support is there, obviously, now. There's probably like 30, 40 cards that interact with the counters. And there's actually all these different ways to, like, reset stuff and, like, put a counter on yours so that you offset it, and do tricks with, like, Channeler and all that. And it's almost like energy, because there's all these weird things you can do with -1 counters. Like, if it has -1 counters, blow it up. Or if you have a -1 counter on Channeler, use it to create any color mana. So it's very flexible. It's very, I guess you would say, robust. It does a whole bunch of things. You got options. And if somebody's doing tribal and you can start shutting them down by shrinking their biggest creatures, they might, like, forever not be able to swing, because, you've got this 3/3 or 4/4 or 5/5 on the field, and nothing they have is big enough, and then when they finally drop counters on the last merfolk and make them good enough, you remove them. And, I mean, when your main core mechanic that triggers all of your triggers, all of your conditional spells, is also removal by definition, ooh, that's spicy. So I might be looking at something like that. Plus, people are really underappreciating cards like Baleful Amit, that other one that kind of looks like Baleful Amit but isn't. That stupid obelisk spider thing, that thing's insane. And then, oh my god, the card that should be in every single deck. Okay, every deck that's running -1 counters significantly. Nest of Scarabs, the 3-cost black enchantment. Whenever you put one or more -1 counters on a creature, yours or theirs, create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. That many, not per instance, that many. I mean, that card that gets a -1 counter every time your opponent casts a spell, and then you just hit them with it and reset it. Otherwise, well, let's be honest, you'll just get 5 insects. That card is crazy. It is crazy. Nest of Scarabs is one of the most powerful spells in Standard right now, and very few people are playing it. If I'm remembering this correctly, there are multiple planeswalkers that interact with -1 counters. I mean, you can build a deck with -1/-1s and have the whole deck interact with it. So I'm probably going to build a green-black -1/-1 deck just because it's just so good. It's really the perfect alternative to energy. I cannot say enough about it. It easily gets a 9 out of 10. It's pretty close to a 10 out of 10. But sorry guys, 10 out of 10 is reserved for Devotion, which actually wouldn't be terribly competitive with the amount of removal right now. I just love Devotion. I'm really hoping that with all the double and triple costs they got right now, that Devotion is going to be heavy in Rivals, but I feel like that's not terribly likely. So let's talk about Afflict. It's basically semi-trample. It's like trample, but not as good. Now, there is that one Afflict card where it's like every time he's not blocked, he draws a card, and every time he is blocked, you take triple the damage that you would have if you would have let him through. That card is just standalone good, but otherwise Afflicted, it's nice. It's like if you were already going to throw the creature in because you needed a creature with that toughness, that attack, or just that mana cost, okay, but I wouldn't go build an Afflict deck because, I mean, you got dinosaurs, they're bigger than you. You got merfolk, they're just going to out-hit you anyway, and it's just not great. Like, it's cool, but like I said, it's just a weaker version of Trample, basically. Not always. I mean, there are cards that do it differently where they hit harder than even their attack power, but other than that, it just basically is semi-trample, so it never was going to be that good. I like it, though. I like the design of it. I think it's neat. I think it's appropriate. It's not overpowered, so it's kind of fun, but I wouldn't go out of my way to put it in. Oh, and I did forget to mention something, Deserts, because Deserts as a card, all the lands are garbage. They all pretty much tap for colorless or they come in tapped. They're terrible, and you got to sacrifice them just to get anything out of them. And then all the cards that rely on Deserts are kind of garbage too, and there's very few of them. So 1 out of 10. Curses. So auras that attach to your opponent. It is a real crying shame that we lost the Accursed Witch. She was in, I don't know, Shadows, Eldritch, something like that. She was really good. I mean, really, really, really good. And the more curses you can stack up on your opponent, the better. So we're left with what? Like Torment of Scarabs and that other weird hieroglyphic looking thing and Cruel Reality if you get to 7 mana. So if you're running all 3 of those, cool. There's no cards that give your opponents hexproof that I know of. By the way, that Shieldmate thing, oh my god, play that in Modern. It is so good. So I do like them just solely based on the fact that the games are getting dragged out, okay? Besides Red Rush and Red-Green Energy Rush, which is still totally a thing, if nobody's playing that, people are kind of like their second choices are pretty slow. Like you're going to turn 10 probably, maybe more. So if on turn 4 you drop a Torment of Scarabs on your opponent, they're in trouble. And there's, still enough control cards and board wipes, which like I said, board wipes and control cards and creature removal and that kind of stuff, mass exile, and that's huge right now because you have to stop tribal. Heck, it even stops Servo Rush and Thopter Rush. I mean, it stops energy, it stops hexproof, it stops merfolk. Board wipes and mass creature control sweepers, that kind of stuff, exile on swing, it's just good. So if you run that and the curses are still sitting on your opponent, you are drawing the game out just enough that at a certain point they will just lose to the curse. I mean, any RPG, even Pokemon, they had, status conditions where they get hit slowly over time and it builds up, but the number of turns they are affected by it are, the higher the better. So I think there is room for curses right now. So if you're looking for a card and it's on curve and it fits and you have nothing better to put in your deck, yeah, do it. Otherwise, if you're just playing like a really slow, drag it out control kind of deck or like a stall the board state, wall and death touch kind of thing, which will not at all stop merfolk, yeah, I would probably run some curses. It's just the longer the game, the more you get out of it, and recurring triggers that you don't have to pay for, you don't have to do anything, they just happen. Those are always good. So I'd maybe give curses a 7 out of 10. They're very, they fit and they're very good. There's just almost none of them. I mean, I guess you could talk about brick counters. I mean, they usually go on artifacts and pretty much nobody's playing artifact destruction, but they're kind of slow and they're not that great and they usually do something specific. So I'm just not that impressed with them in general. It's an awfully large mana expenditure, and then if somebody's playing a faster deck, you just lost the game by dropping out something that you're not going to get a use out of for 3 turns. I totally don't remember if I already talked about Embalm and Eternalize, but they're good. I mean, if your creatures are getting blown up because everybody's playing creature removal, yeah, make them kill them twice. That's really all there is to it. Would I build a 100% Embalm and Eternalize deck? No. But would I put them in if they fit? Yeah. I mean, it's no surprise. In Magic, making somebody kill something twice is good. Surprise. And let's talk about cycling. They're very specific. I mean, they're very synergistic and they're very flexible. And there is the whole gimmicky kind of glass cannon almost kind of thing where you end up like, oh, cycle, draw, cycle, draw, cycle, draw, or you like cycle your whole deck in a row. But those are so hard to set up, and everybody's playing control one way or another right now. So can they stop your combo? Yeah. Will they know how to do it? Yeah. The sets have been out long enough, so that's a little sketchy. But just individual cycling cards where it's like, I don't need this. It's turn 2. It costs 6. Cycle it and get something better. Yeah. Oh, I didn't need an 8th land. Cycle the land. You know, absolutely. So, I mean, would I put it in? Yeah. Would I build an entire cycling deck right now? No. I think it's just a little too obvious, a little too weak, and very, very much slow. Cycling decks got to get all kinds of like enchantments out and this and that, and this creature has to be on the field and this has to be in the graveyard, and oh, then you can maybe return them and cast them from the graveyard, and it's just all this build-up stuff, and the whole time you're getting just pounded by creatures. So I really don't like cycling at all, but as an individual thing where you just threw it in because you like cycling, that's it. You know, that's the limit of goodness. Okay, if I forgot to talk about anything else in Amonkhet, it's probably because it sucks. So Ixalan, this is where things get interesting. So we got Explorer, Enrage, Raid. Obviously vehicles are back, but we already talked about them. They're crap. You got flipping cards, but I mean, that's a thing that cards do. I'm not really going to consider that a mechanic. It's more of a do you need this card on an individual basis thing, and most of them take so damn long to flip that you can't reliably run them. Oh, and by the way, some of the like sub mechanics were obviously treasure, you know, just treasure in general. Tribal synergy, obviously, and would I build a tribal deck? Yeah, why not? I mean, duh, tribal. That's just basic Magic, yeah. Oh, look, tribals build on each other and are good. Wow, this is my surprise face. And +1/+1 counters are pretty prevalent. The wiki page says using life as a resource is a mechanic, which, I mean, like literally just Vona and like 2 other creatures, I think. So not big enough. Sorry, not gonna consider that. So let's just talk about the big ones. Okay, so Enrage. The cards with Enrage are so slow that your opponent probably has so much out that they could double block you anyway, and then they'll get hit by Enrage once, and then your dinosaur's dead. So just dinosaurs in general, which are the ones that have Enrage, it's not great, but there's quite a few cards that can deal 1 damage to like 2 creatures, even ones that you own. There's one that does damage to 3 creatures split any way you want. So you can actually hit one of yours with Enrage and then kill a 2 toughness creature on their side. And then there's just the whole attacking blocking thing. They will hesitate to block you because you're going to get a crazy good effect. Now, some of them are better than others, but in general, Enrage is really quite good. I mean, it adds a little something to, oh, I have like a 6/6 dinosaur and I'm swinging with it and hopefully I win. Now it's like, oh, and if they block it and deal damage, then I also get this. So it's kind of like Afflict. It's just this extra little bonus thing that now they have to worry about. So it's just a slight little upgrade to a creature, but that's all it is. Would I build an all Enrage deck and then just run like, what's that card? I want to call it Poke, but it's not Poke. It's the one where you like deal 1 damage and then draw a card and then you get the Enrage, obviously, and you're supposed to target your own creature with it. I don't think I would. I don't think Enrage is quite that good, so it's just nice, and if you're playing Dinosaur Tribal, maybe lean towards them. But I have a feeling that half the dinosaurs, and for the record, half the pirates, half the treasure generators, half the merfolk, and half of whatever I forgot, are still in the next set. So no matter what you're playing, just keep in mind it's crippled and it's not as good as it's going to be in the future. That alone really limits its competitive nature. Like, really, 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 not to mention obviously limiting your options. Now, Treasure's absolutely fantastic. They've got to be my favorite mechanic from the new set, by far, because it's mana ramp, it's universal colored mana ramp, and the only thing I don't like is that it feeds improvise, although, like I said, that's really shaky. And people can remove them all or force you to, like, you know, immediately sack them all with a couple different spells. But other than that, they're pretty resilient. I mean, they're more there to stay on the field than Scions were, because Scions were pretty darn easy to kill pretty much any way you want. The problem is the treasure generators aren't great. I mean, like Captain Lannery Storm, that's pretty good. You get one every swing, you know, but she is only a 2/2, so how long's that going to last? Cards like Contract Killing, where it's, you know, you destroy target creature as a sorcery and get 2 treasures, but it costs 5 and it's double black. I mean, is that really realistic to put in a deck? And an even better question would be, do you even need treasures if you already had 5 to feed into this? But I think the point of that card was you used treasures to cast it and are replacing the treasures. So you actually only had like 3 lands on the field, but you got rid of 2 treasures to cast this, and then you got them back. I think that was more what they were going for. So a lot of times it's just, here's an overpriced spell that does something that another card does for cheaper. Oh, but you get a treasure, like Depths of Desire. You bounce a creature back to hand and then get a treasure. There's a 2-cost and a 1-cost spell that do that. So, I mean, at 3 mana, it's cool to get it. So all the 1, 2, and 3-cost generators of treasure and all the recurring generators of treasure are pretty good, but everything else is just like, that's just an overpriced spell. Now, keep in mind, like, I'm talking a lot about treasure, but it's split between just about all the colors. I mean, I think maybe white doesn't have a generator of treasure. Actually, yeah, looking through it, they don't. But the other 4 do. And by 4, I mean green doesn't either if you cut Vraska Relic Seeker, so it's really just like a 3-color thing. But grand total, even including Vraska, there's only 18 cards. I can't wait until there's closer to, 36 cards that deal with treasure, because that'll be really cool. So right now, I mean, you're super limited, but if you can put in a card that generates treasure under some circumstance, I would probably do it. But some of the treasure cards are just unplayable. Like Pirate's Prize, that's just stupid. But then again, like equipment, like Prying Blade, oh my gosh, I mean, drop it for 1, equip it for 2, and then whenever it deals combat damage, you get a treasure every single time. Yeah. But then you got, Spell Swindle, which costs 5, and you generate, treasure equal to the mana cost of whatever you just countered. I think that's another one where theoretically your whole deck is generating treasures, so you didn't really get 5 lands out or have 5 lands open. You spent treasure to cast it and then got some treasure back. That conditional stuff, it's a little rough, because if you manage to not get treasure, or somebody blew them up, or you had to use them on something else, now you're in trouble because you can't cast your main counterspell. But otherwise, I mean, with the complete lack of really good support for it, it's still pretty good. I mean, I would put it in. You got all kinds of fun stuff that deals with it, and I mean, there's just really, like, honestly 3 or 4 cards that are just, good treasure cards. But they're good enough that I would consider them if I was playing that color. So I'd maybe give treasures a 6 out of 10 for now. Now, the main problem with that, though, is if you're relying on treasures to cast like an X spell or like a 5+ cost spell, you're very narrow on how you can generate them. And a lot of it is very conditional. So it is very unreliable ramp, and you're almost going to have to throw in mana dorks just to like make up for it. So flippy cards, too slow, too unreliable. I think I already said that. Tribals, duh. Vehicles, dead on arrival. Life as a resource, you're literally talking about like 2 or 3 cards, so just if you like them, put them in. Let's talk about raid. I don't like it because if you're already losing the game, you'll never get a raid, thing, because they blew up everything or nothing can swing because they have a superior line of creatures. And then if you're already winning, you probably don't need raid. I mean, you do kind of want to drive it home in case they start to turn the game around, but that's such a narrow circumstance that raid is just bad. Now, sometimes you could like swing, get a death trigger because you just swung into something bigger, and then you still get raid and you drop out something better than both, and then you got a secondary trigger on that, and then you get like also an ETB effect. So there are some clever things you can do with it, but overall, it's just unreliable, weak, and it only works if you're already going to probably win the game. So I'd give raid about a 2 out of 10. It's just not good. So Explore, let's talk about Explore, because Explore is amazing. Now, if you mixed Explore with treasures, now we're talking, because bigger creatures that can stall out the game while you kind of get your land drops and get your treasure on the field so that you can cast, 7-8 cost spell. That's cool. Otherwise, you're dumping lands onto the field, and then you don't need to stall because you have the mana. So Explore is probably the most reliable, best mana ramp right now. I would say it even beats like little mana generating creatures because they can get blown up, and then where are you? And plus, late game, you don't need them because then you already have the lands. So Explore is just plain good. I absolutely love it. And then on top of it, they didn't just leave it. There's a couple cards that say whenever you explore, or whenever a creature you control explores, then also do this, so you get even more value out of it. Not all those cards are terribly good, and once again, I would not build an Explore deck. That seems a little excessive. But I would strongly consider any kind of permanent that comes into the battlefield and explores, because it's just good. And there's a couple that do it repeatedly too. So I love everything about Explore. It's strong, it's powerful, and I mean, what is somebody going to do? Cast Disallow to stop an Explore trigger? I mean, they can't stop it. And what are they going to do? Like counter you dropping your land into the field into play, or putting it into your hand, make you discard it? I mean, it's so narrow what somebody can do to stop exploration. The only problem though is with the amount of creature removal and the likelihood that you'll get a counter on the creature instead of a land, yeah, it does make your opponent's removal spells go a long way, but keep in mind, it's not just, I'm going to dump counters onto this creature over and over and over. It's, okay, they enter the battlefield, oh look, they get a counter, and then we're done, that's it. So it's not like somebody just forced you to sacrifice your Walking Ballista, in which case you would probably just sacrifice it anyway in response and hit them, but still. Like if you've been pumping 4 mana into it over and over and over and over and over, and then you got out like the snake, and now you're dropping double count, oh, and then they blew it up. Whoops. Yeah, so Explore, never say I'm not going to play counters because it makes my opponent's removal too good, but if you're going all in on counters, where you're just dumping counters onto the same creatures over and over and over, then it should be on your mind. So Explore plays around everything, and it is just plain good. The best part about it is the creatures with Explore are not necessarily hyper underpowered, so if they don't get the counter, or if you don't need more mana, or just something backfires with it, it's still a moderately good creature. So I would give Explorer easily a 9 out of 10, assuming I didn't already just rate it something else. I'm not paying very much attention today, and once again, got very little sleep because I was working very far away very late at night. Hey, money's money, right? I don't want to take the job, but it is what it is. So as far as I can tell, that is basically all of the major mechanics and keywords and everything from all the sets that are legal right now. It's clear to see that some of them are just blatantly better than others. It's a shame that the Ixalan ones are so fun, so reliable, and so awesome, but we're missing half the support for all of them. That really is almost single-handedly what's wrong with Standard right now, and the other half would be that Aether Revolt is just too good and Energy is too good. But if you're looking for something to play, I mean, that's it. I would go for, what were the top-rated ones? -1 counters, Explore/Treasure Ramp with maybe Curses, just Curses in general in basically any deck, or Energy. Now, we gotta consider a couple others, like let's build all flyers, see if that works. Or all the other classics, let's do burn, let's do the best token drop we possibly can. Token drop is like really hard to play right now because of the level of board wipes, because they will get a darn lot of value out of it. But keep in mind, the big tokens right now are the 1/1 lifelink vampires, okay? Tokens chump blocking is one thing, but tokens chump, I can't even say it. Tokens chump blocking and gaining life at the same time is pretty nuts. And there's actually a whole bunch of cards that dump counters onto all creatures, whether they're tokens or not. So that is a little fragile. That is open to giving your opponent too much value when they, board wipe or, kill multiple creatures. But it's good. I mean, if you get them up to 3/3 lifelinkers and swing with 8 of them, holy cow. The problem is the vampire droppers, I mean, there's probably less than 10 cards that do it. But you also got servos, you also got zombies, you also got thopters. So yeah, I mean, there's enough generators, and a lot of them cost 2 or 3. You could get something going with that. It's a little fragile, but you could probably flood somebody with it. The problem is, it will not stop merfolk. They are flying, unblockable, or whatever. So all flyers, no, the support isn't there. I'll just keep it short. You will have to play like 4 colors, and the deck would suck. I mean, there are almost no flyers that are horribly, horribly popular right now. I mean, there's like Glorybringer and, I don't know, Aerial Responder maybe? I'm probably forgetting a couple. I mean, maybe Kinjali has played a bit, but it's not like people are like, oh, my deck has 4 flyers in it. And Reach? What the heck has Reach right now? Nothing. Nothing anybody plays, at least, so don't worry about that. That stupid little Archer thing that's like, what, a 1/4? Forget that. But still, I mean, the flyers are so weak, there's not like a 4/1 flyer for 3 or some kind of flying 2/1 for 2 that is haste or something. There's just nothing like that. So flyers are weak, they're pathetic. There's a couple good ones, but not enough to build a whole deck out of. I mean, we lost Gisela, we lost a bunch of other stuff like that. It's just not going to happen, sorry. So, common stuff like all trample, green giant ramp trample, that's an okay deck. There's not a lot of support for it. It might be a little bit rough. You'll have to throw in cards that are not necessarily on curve or, perfect, but It'd be kind of fun. I don't think it would be powerful though. And counterspell heavy. Pretty much nobody's playing combos, like glass cannon combos where 1 or 2 counterspells will just shut them down and then they're top decking. Pretty much it's just, I'm going to build on this. I'm going to drop counters on this. I'm going to drop another tribal. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So in the same sense, I'd say, you know, name a card by name and stop it. You know, there's like 4 cards right now that do that. You got like the Johnny one, I think. You got the like the Pithing Needle clone and, you know, a couple others. I don't think they're good enough because, like I said, people are not doing very, very particular combos. Tribals are huge right now. Marvel is gone. That's all I can say about it. So yeah, blue counterspell and then try and hit him with stuff. I mean, all the best blue creatures were in Eldritch Moon pretty much and other earlier sets. So yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. So a lot of these staple ones are out. I mean, you almost have to build one of the 3 major ones that I mentioned in this video, which is a real shame. But there might be something way creative, just something out of left field that people are building. I've seen some really wacky stuff. A lot of it's like a semi-glass cannon kind of thing where if it goes off, it just absolutely destroys your hopes and dreams. But, you know, those are shaky. But could you get away with something like that because nobody's playing counterspells? Yeah, probably. So hopefully this whole video gave you guys a fantastic vision or whatever of the state of Standard, what's good, what's not, what mechanics work, what is good against each other, what's popular, what people are playing, what people aren't playing, and what I think you could get away with that you can't normally do, which is my favorite type of deck to play. So if you have anything to add that I left out, which I guarantee is something, leave it down in the comments section below. Otherwise, I will see you guys next video.